Hi, this is Dr. Bosch, and I want to welcome you to Bio 201, Human Anatomy and Physiology. I thought I would take some time today just to go through some items in the Canvas site to help you get started with the class. So our Canvas site opens with home usually, and I've got some information about what you'll need for the class. I've gone over this several times in emails, but just as a reminder, it's the lab manual, the 13th edition, the PIG edition, and then access to Pearson Modified Mastering, and then lastly, the ebook or textbook. The 11th edition of the textbook matches the 13th edition of lab manual, but if you get an older edition of the textbook, it's still pretty good. It's not an exact match, but you have to get the exact lab manual. If you don't have the 13th edition PIG, it's just a different lab manual. It won't really work. Now the module section is where almost everything is. So I'll come back to that one, but just to show you what else is there, here are the assignments. And whenever I say you need to submit an assignment, that would be, say, the first lab that's due, I think, next Tuesday. You would just click on here and where it says submit an assignment, click that and then download a single file that has the lab guide and then the questions from labs 1 and 2. So that's where you submit that. So this assignment section has all the work you'll be doing and submitting. There's the current event article reviews, your outlines that you'll submit, and then lastly, your student presentations. If we go to the next section, there's grades that'll show up. Many of you have already done your introduction, which is kind of the first assignment. So if you have 15 over 15, your grade should be 100%, which is great. You have an A, yay for that. And then whenever I send out an email, I also make an announcement of it so that you have kind of two places to find the same information. So yesterday I sent out some information about that computer loan program, and here's that announcement. I sent the corrected schedule. The first schedule I sent a few weeks ago was missing a week. Sorry about that. But I put that week back in, and so it's on there. And then other announcements. Where it says quizzes, these are the online quizzes. These are open book, open note, but give you just some practice doing quiz questions. You do get 2 chances to try those. I think your first one is Monday. Then there's not much on the discussion board, but the introductions you need to do this week. In fact, on Wednesday, I'm going to use that for attendance. So if you haven't done it, it might get dropped. So make sure you do that so I know you're here. I'll actually try to contact you first. And then also you can see who else is in the class. I'm having you reply to a couple of students at least in the class. The people section has everybody in the class if you want to contact them. And then this place where there's syllabus is really just all the things that I've dated come up one after the other. These are all the assignments, kind of the due dates for a number of assignments. Okay, let's go back to modules. The modules have most of what you need for this class. So here's the syllabus. Here is the updated schedule. I call it Schedule B because I messed up, but that's the one that works. And then a statement about non-discrimination at Maricopa, and then a Title IX statement against harassment. And then these are the lab guides. There are 10 of them. And they basically tell you what to do in a lab. Let me show you one. Here it is. So here's Lab Guide 1 that we're working on this week. Now you need the lab manual. If you don't have the lab manual, this won't make any sense. But with the lab manual open, then you says locate all the body landmarks. That's on pages 2 to 3 on yourself. So you're looking for these body landmarks on your own body using figure 1.1 on page 2 and table 1.1 on page 3. And then there's just some questions. Sometimes the lab manual has you go to some photos online. We'll see those in a minute. So you need these online lab photos. And then there are other labs where you go to either the online labs in Pearson, the modified mastering, or other places, other videos, and also the slides are also in Canvas. I'll show you those in a minute. And like here are a few different um, YouTube videos you need to watch for this section. And so it's all fairly self-explanatory, but the lab guide, you'll go through this. I think you have about 9 days to do this. And when you're done, there is information um, on the questions to do at the end of the lab manual. So at the end of lab 1 and the end of lab 2, there are questions, and you just make that part of the PDF that you're going to submit for this lab. Okay, so it's always at the end, tells you which ones to do. So this is the end of lab 2. It tells you to do pages 23 to 24, questions 1 through 10. This is the end of lab 1, questions 1 through 18 on pages 11 and 13. So you'll basically submit this lab guide completely done, along with these questions, and then the questions from lab 2. And I think that's due on Tuesday. So here are the rest of the lab guides, along with a couple of PowerPoints, 3 PowerPoints that will help you with some of the labs. Here are lab photos. So for lab 1 and 2, you'll use these photos. For lab 7, there's not photos for every lab, but for many of the labs, they're there. And then the microscope slides. If we were in class, you would be using the microscope a lot. And I do feel bad about that we don't have that kind of ability with online work. However, I have taken pictures of every slide that we use in Bio 201. So the slides you need for lab 6 and 7 are in here, and they're numbered. So you just can look at those and get the ones you need and draw them. By the way, be sure when you're drawing microscope slides that you draw them in color, the same color that you're seeing, and that you label the items that need to be labeled. And it says it right on the lab guide what to label. Okay, so there's those. And then these are the narrated PowerPoints. The reason for this class is to learn about the human body. All the different systems, all the cells, all the tissues, everything about the human body. So chapter 1 is kind of an introduction to the human body, along with some information on the systems. And the PowerPoint goes through the highlights of those chapters. So because these PowerPoints, narrated PowerPoints, take a lot of memory, we've broken them up. So chapter 1 is broken up into 3 parts, chapter 4 to 3 parts. These are either done by myself or by my colleague, Dr. Mark Spencer, who also teaches Bio 201. And the nice thing about listening to these narrated PowerPoints is it really gives a lot of explanation for what you're seeing on the PowerPoint and why it's important. So these are really the best thing to use. Now, we could have just had these PowerPoints and tell you just take notes from them, but to make life a little easier and to focus you a little bit more, we've created outlines. So for chapter 1, what the outline does is give you the main information. The outline follows the PowerPoint. So as you watch the PowerPoint, you should fill out this outline. And these outlines are due for points when we're done with chapter 1, chapter 4, and chapter 5. You'll actually turn in the outline for 25 points. It's not many points, but it does help the students to keep up with things. So what I've done is put all the outlines together for the first exam. So your first exam will be on September 18th, and it'll be over chapter 1, 4, and 5. Now you might wonder what happened to chapter 2 and 3. Those are on cells and organic molecules, and you learn that in the prerequisite classes, so we're not going to go over that again. So we go from chapter 1, an intro, to chapter 4, which is on tissues, and then our first system, the integumentary system. Again, the purpose of the class is to learn about the human body. So you do the outline, but then you study it. You learn the material that's on the PowerPoint and on the outline. I've had students say, well, I did the outline, I didn't understand anything for the test. I wouldn't think you to understand anything for the test. You actually have to study this material. Some of it is a little tedious, learning all the parts of the body. For example, all these regions, you'll need to know all those. Some are easy, like I bet you know nasal, I bet you know oral, maybe even cervical, but maybe you don't know axillary, the area under our armpits. So some takes some study. Some other information on the Canvas site, the current event article review, that has to be filled out from this handout right here, the very first one. And this is a review of recent articles about the human body. So the last month really is best. I mean, if it's 6 weeks ago, that's okay. For journal articles, they can be 3 months old. But don't just review the article and send it to me. You actually have to fill out this form. There's very specific questions on here. To find articles, you can use this site. It tells you exactly how to get to the South Mountain Library, and it will take like 1 minute to find an article using this. So it's very quick and very easy. The third question asks you to cite your article in APA. Here's information about APA reference style, citations. And you do have to summarize the article. So if you're not good at that, there's some information on summarizing right here. If you're in the bilingual nursing program, I did write a couple of papers that got published on that. It doesn't say BNFP in the paper, but you'll recognize it. So if you want to use one of those as one of your articles, feel free, especially if you're in a bilingual program. The student research presentations I'll talk about later. For now, we're going to be looking for some topics in there, and that's something we do at the end of the year. The Jeopardy reviews are just practice questions. You just find the chapter you're interested in and try some review questions. Here are the outlines and reviews. I showed you the outline earlier. This is the one for chapters 1, 4, and 5, and then 6, 7, 8. It goes, there's 5 of them through the semester. The reviews are very helpful. So having studied the chapter, done the outline, and then studied the chapter, you may want to use those reviews to practice questions that relate to it. I don't collect these reviews, but I can tell you that students that do the reviews do much better than students that don't do the reviews because they're sort of like practice quiz questions or practice test questions. So what I do is I take the information from, say, chapter 1, and then the chapter 1 review will ask you questions about that. I also always have a review for the exam itself, which is just a shorter look at chapters 1, 4, and 5. And it's true for all of the sections. So here's again the outline review, some more reviews, and then the exam review for all the different sections. So that's 13, 15. Now the last part of Canvas site has information by chapter. This is just the PowerPoint without me talking. So if you want to go back through it without the narration, if you've heard the narration and feel like you just want to look at it again, there it is for chapter 1, there it is for chapter 4, and here it is for chapter 5. And there's some other things in there too. This is a welcome about the class, and then a matching activity. You don't have to do these, but they're there if you want. This is all set up by chapter. I even have it ready if you're taking Bio 202. This is the first information for Bio 202. By the way, if you do take Bio 202, you don't have to get any new materials. So I know some of these materials were kind of expensive, but you've really bought materials for the entire year for Bio 201 and 202. Most programs require both. In fact, I don't really understand it when they only require Bio 201 because you've only done 4 systems and there's about 12 of them. But anyway, if you go on to 202, you'll use the same materials and then some information about the final exam. I hope this quick run through the Canvas site was helpful for you. I am also going to send out kind of weekly reminders. And so I'll send that about what you need to be doing this week. As far as what's on the schedule, I might have said this earlier, but it's up to you to decide when you want to do the work. Just make sure you have things done for the due dates. And I did a daily schedule because that seems to help students to know how much time they should be spending on things. But I do have the schedule for the whole semester, and we'll stick pretty close to that. I welcome you to the class. I wish you success. Please stay up on things. That's how to be successful. Take care.